Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I watched an episode of Space Above and Beyond, so I am a whole...
Cacophony?
I'm a battlefield of emotions. There's a lot happening. There's many moving pieces. There's explosions. There's debris. It's a whole lot of things, but
It's a whole lot of good.
We can talk about that. So it's a whole lot of yum yum is what it is all about, because here on Yum Yum and Beyond, we are the podcast, one of the very few, one of the only podcast that is talking about space above and beyond, and not only just talking about space above and beyond, but doing it episode by episode, looking at the individual pieces, all the scenes and the beats and the things that we liked or didn't like about space above and beyond. And Rachel, this is your first time going through space above and beyond, and this
That it is
a rewatch for me, but everyone is welcome to listen along to us, because we aren't going to spoil how things pan out, although this is infamously a cancelled television show. This is one of the greatest examples of a super cult classic show where the series is known to some people, but not a lot. And even so, it's one of those sci-fi, to me, classics that isn't discussed enough. I look everywhere on the internet, and in small little pockets, but there isn't enough people out there talking and watching Space Above and Beyond, and I think that should change. I think there should be more people out there. So, you younglings listening to this, if you are not watching Space Above and Beyond with us, I heartily recommend that you give it your time. Find a copy of it. There's several places you can do so at. As we record this, there's a few people who have uploaded episodes to YouTube. I don't know why they've remained on there. That's the thing. No one cares enough to give Space Above and Beyond its fair shake, and so people can just upload it to YouTube, and the copyright holders don't give a shit because they don't care enough, which is truly a shame, because we have strong feelings otherwise about it.
It may be to your benefit.
It may be to your benefit. So we are looking over on our discussion today, episode 16 of Space Above and Beyond, Toy Soldiers. Now, Rachel, do you remember what you thought this was going to be about at the end of our last discussion?
I remember that I eventually said that it was going to be about West's brother, but apparently that was not my first guess.
That was not your first guess. Any memories of your first guess? You made a whole plot.
Okay.
She says it like, okay, don't sail me down the river. I know I got it wrong, but like, don't have to bring up.
Can we just focus on that one of my guesses were right?
You did guess that it would be about West's younger brother, but your original thought was this was going to be a Cooper Hawks episode. You were so adamant that it was going to be a Cooper Hawks episode, and that they were going to be put on the front lines, which is kind of true. Yeah. Not really in this case. I wouldn't say that's necessarily true, but
no, it was not meant to be about all.
and you assumed it was going to be a war games of sorts.
Yes, I did guess that.
But didn't line up that way. So the DVD description tells us that Toy Soldiers is an episode about as such. West is upset when his younger brother, who has joined the Marines, shows up on the Saratoga under the command of an inexperienced gung-ho lieutenant.
Yeah, feels like one of those textbook shake and bakes. Gets command before he's even done his time in the thick.
How can such a pogue get command when he's never even seen a chick?
Seems more interested in getting a silver star than getting his men home in one piece.
I remembered Toy Soldiers, and I remembered the plot point of his younger brother coming back. When we watched the original, the TV movie pilot.
Did you remember that he dies?
Oh, I remembered all of this.
Yeah.
But when we had the TV movie pilot, there was that whole subplot bit where he went back home, and it was a real slowing down of the momentum of the pilot, a pilot that's already too long. And you were wondering at the time, why are we doing this? Why are we spending time with his family right now? And the answer is so we could establish this, so we can eventually get to this episode. So we, the audience, can have some emotional connection to the idea of West having a family.
Yeah.
And I do not think the pilot effectively did that. This episode individually does a better job.
Yes, I agree.
As did the other episodes just mentioning his brother along the way. Now, my history and relationship with toy soldiers is actually rather peculiar. I remember viscerally hating this episode.
Wow.
But I don't remember why. I just remembered toy soldiers. That's the one with his younger brother who dies. And that was my overall
interesting
thought process over the years. I just, So when I saw it was coming up next last week, I still had that in my soul. You could actually, if you actually listen back to the last episode, you can almost hear it in my voice.
No, I could tell. I was just like, oh, okay, this is going to move away from what we've been enjoying about Space Above and Beyond.
Have you had something like that for you, a piece of media, an episode or a storyline or even a character or a movie where you saw it a long time ago and
you
now
just went, ew, no.
But you don't even remember why you have that?
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular you could raise up as an example of that?
I don't know if this really works, but I remember having a rational hatred towards a movie that I watched. And I was just like, I just watched it of my own free will, and I fucking hated it.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept on watching it because I was like, there should be nothing that wrong with this movie. Why am I hating it so much? And it was Hotel for Dogs.
I mean, I understand it's a hotel for dogs, and I don't want to be there. I'm here for Hotel for Humans. That's what or Hotel Transylvania.
And they're like, I'm not the only one that like hates the whole
Hotel for Dogs?
Rory leaving Yale plotline in Gilmore Girls.
I was waiting for you to bring up a Gilmore Girls story in here, or even something like a Buffy story. Now, I don't want to give away too much, but I just wanted to preface all of that because, yeah, I was...
You came in with baggage.
I came in with baggage, and I want to know what your overall impressions were going in and coming out of this.
I thought it was mostly okay. Leaving it. Going in, I didn't have that many expectations. I was hoping for something a bit better than what we got, but I also don't know what you would change about this episode to make it better. Like, it is what it is. And it's just like, I'm not that into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at the moment.
So, I totally get what you're saying. There's something within Toy Soldiers that makes it lacking, but what would I change? What would I replace within it? Because I can't exactly pinpoint the things that don't work enough to say, oh, well, here's what you do to do this, or here's what I would have preferred. It's also difficult because we just came off of a couple of really great episodes, so you're always going to feel that lull, even if this isn't that bad of a story. To
compare it to Babylon 5, this episode is bad, but it's no walkabout.
It's ceremonies of light and dark after Severed Dreams, if you're Babylon 5 fans. And if you're not, that is just basically to say, arguably the greatest episode of the entire series, then followed by another one. It's like, no matter what the other one is, it's not going to be one of the greats. It's just going to be lesser than, and that's not even the fault of an episode. It's just the nature of the beast. You just go, okay, toy soldiers after the angriest angel. And I actually rather liked toy soldiers on this viewing of it. I actually felt quite a lot, and I liked the guest stars. I thought they were very well done, very well performed, and clearly defined who they are and what they're going to do. But I rather liked Nathan West here. I felt
He's
for
come
his
so far.
and they had the opportunities within this episode to allow him, and you would actually be on his side, to regress into that prickish Nathan West that's going to run out into the field and do irresponsible things. He does do irresponsible things within the episode, but they're measured, they're tempered, they're the writers holding back, because if they go too far, they will make the audience unsympathetic to West. But I never lost my sympathy for him. I felt the agony and the frustration that he was going through in this. So I was in the shoes of Nathan West yet again, and that is something to truly commend the series on, which is, we started out with him being a character that was hard to identify with. We could identify what he was, but we couldn't identify with him. Now, we're nearing the end of the show. We're past the midway point, and I can firmly say that when we do focus on West, I'm now empathetic or sympathetic towards him. I feel for the guy. I get what he is going through in each beat of the stories that are told with him, rather than looking at it at a stroking my chin going, oh no, on a writing level, you see, they're referencing this kind of past lead that used to be in these war stories. There's none of that anymore. So, the strength of the episode, as usual with a space above and beyond, tale, is always the character stuff. Now, my main criticism with Toy Soldiers, and I want to know your opinions on this, because this is a part of the DNA of Space Above and Beyond, is it's not like it didn't tell me. I didn't care about what the mission was. They said what it was for. They went through all of the briefings over it. They said, this is what we're here to do, and this is how we're going to achieve it. And my brain just didn't absorb any of it in. I just rejected it. There's just something about how Space Above and Beyond lays out the missions themselves that the 58th goes on that just doesn't connect with me. I'm not excited when they do them. No. I'm more excited about how whatever this thing is, and that's how I treat it, whatever this thing is going to influence the psyches and the morale of the 58th, rather than the actual mission and story that is going to be laid out. How do you feel about that? And was that at all present here?
Yeah, it's always here. They never quite land it. And to me, a part of the problem is that they're trying to do storytelling, but also realism in the moment of them giving the spiels of what a mission is. And it's just like, well, okay, they're going and they're going to go do a thing. Woo. And it's not going to go according to plan, because otherwise it wouldn't be a fucking episode.
There's a disconnect of understanding how their mission contributes to the war.
Yeah. I'm always like, yeah, it's a part of the bigger plan, and it's just like certain things are more directly linked to it, like McQueen's mission last episode of destroying Chiggy so that they could do their big offensive that they're planning. Very clear.
Chiggy was a very understandable opponent. That's the thing. This here, what's the opponent? Well, like, we know it's the
It's like,
Chigs, but
why-
what is the
and
opponent? What is the goal?
they
What is the thing to
deliberately-
overcome?
Like, the way that they handle this in this episode is really odd. And they've done it a couple of times in a similar way of none of your business. You don't need to know.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to do. It's just like, what are we taking the photos for? Reasons. Shut up.
I liked it here, though. I liked that. It fueled into why West's younger brother, that group, why the recon team did what they did, and they're inexperienced and they don't respect the chain of command. I appreciated that, but I know
They're
what you're
also,
saying.
Like, yeah.
We're like
They're
16,
their
17
own unit, and they want to prove themselves.
Mm.
And the fact that they were sort of that they're not a part of the bigger, grander plan. They think that if they prove themselves, they would be.
And again, one of the struggles is understanding the scope of this war in terms of how the 58th engages with it. There are episodes where it's super clear. Okay, guys, we need you to go here because we need fuel, and for some reason, this mining operation's been disabled.
Yeah, there's a
We understand-
discrete thing.
And then there's silicates there. We understood that, or like you said, Chiggy von Richthofen, right? Where we know why they need to do this. Oh, we found this. We've disabled this Chiggy ship, and we got this Chig ship. We're going to fly it back and attack them. Clear, understood, but there are too many episodes like this one where it is this nebulous, hard to fully engage with mission. And that's my big drawback with Toy Soldiers, is all of the character stuff is really great, but what the characters are doing physically, I just don't care about all that much, which is really going to be hard to win me over fully into the emotional tale that you're telling here.
Yeah, and it's just like, you're just waiting for stuff to go wrong in an episode like this, because it's just like, well, it's pretty obvious what's gonna happen. Hothead's gonna hothead and get a bunch of people killed. And the sort of twist is that West's brother does die, and it's the hothead commanding officer that's the
One who
sole
lives.
survivor.
And that war isn't fair. That, like, again, the messaging and the themes are
He
very
doesn't
solid.
listen to what West said in the first place,
Mhm.
which is that, like, you know, if you behave this way, you're gonna see the inside of a body bag. And he doesn't listen to his brother because he sees it as he's being his brother, when it's also he's being an experienced Marine, but he's doing that because he's the older brother. And we've seen the way that
And because
he's also butted heads with other COs of other units when he disagrees with them.
And Nathan West knows on some level that he hasn't joined the Marines for the most honorable or valid reasons, and that the war has hardened him to be there for correct reasons, but he doesn't want that to be bestowed upon his brother, who he also doesn't believe is there for valid reasons or the true reasons to be a part of the war. And he doesn't want his brother to either die or be turned into what he has become, even if it has made Nathan find like a sense of maturity and a place. You'd also, I can imagine, and you do see how this plays out, that he doesn't want his brother to have to become that as well. He wanted his brother to be the one that somehow
to be spared,
to be the kid brother who lives a happy little life. And so Nathan can look at him as, well, the one who's happy.
Yeah, like, I'm fighting this war so he doesn't have to.
Mom and Dad weren't happy either, but they respect my decision.
I told you to stay in college. The war might have been over by then.
You joined?
Yeah, I joined. I joined to become a colonial sentry. My chance to get to Tellus. The war broke out, I had no choice.
Well, I have a choice, and it's to fight.
What the hell do you know about fighting?
The Chigs are a dark-hearted enemy, Nathan. They'll stop short of nothing less than total annihilation. Look, it's not about losing a way of life. It's about losing life.
That sounds good and all, but when you're out here, it's got nothing to do with that.
We're having some problems with the episode, so I just want to get those out of the way first, because both of us seem to have enjoyed this. We both liked Toy Soldiers, but we just didn't love it as an episode. So I wanted to hear more from you. What were the things that just didn't come together that holds this back?
Like, I touched on it. You know where the episode's going from the start, and it doesn't exactly pretend like the audience doesn't know where this is gonna go.
No, they fully
Like,
know that we know, because they have
lean into it.
the
So
quotes.
it's just
the
like,
quotes at the start of each act is leading us further into the dirt.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's this weird thing of like, they've edited the episode to try and patch over these three things that I have problems with. So it makes it really hard to say what's wrong with it, because they've addressed a lot of the things that I have problems with. So, like the fact that it's just like, oh, well, little brother just pops in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but they did set it up in the pilot, and they did set it up a number of episodes ago when he found out that his brother had enlisted.
Yep.
So it's like, it's been set up.
He got a
So-
letter from his mother in a previous episode about his brother too, and so
Yeah, you know that this has been coming. So it's just like, well, you can't say that it's out of nowhere.
Mm.
But it does feel like, oh, okay, we're doing this now.
Mhm.
Even though it's been set up and it's clearly established in, like, the tone of it is clearly established when
we meet up with his brother.
Yeah.
His brother is the first person we see in the episode.
And then, of course, when they see each other on the Saratoga.
And Shane knows who it is because she's met him before as well.
And it's just like, oh, well, that, of course, makes sense. But it just doesn't connect fully for me. It's like, I never fully buy into this episode. And it's lots of little things. And I don't know how to fix it.
And there's the rub too. You say there's lots of little things that push you away. And once those things happen, they have a bunch of other little things that bring you back in.
Yes. So it's a weird sort of roller coaster of being like, I like this. Ooh, but no. Oh, yes, I want more of that.
Well, what are some other things that come to your mind?
For things that I was like, oh,
Yeah, that just didn't click.
Some of the music was just a little bit too leaning into he's a 1950s hero.
Yeah, the
the like musical motifs. A couple of them were just like,
you got it.
Yes, I know what you're doing, and I just don't particularly appreciate it right now. But I'm like, and another person probably fucking loves the hell out of this.
Yeah.
West going off on his own, like, and
At
just
which
being,
point?
like when he's going to find his brother in the trench.
I think that's fine.
That's fine enough, but like all of the sort of semi-glorifying shots of West being this amazing Marine, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Can he just get there and find his brother dead or alive? Like, just, I kind of wish that it was a little bit snappier. Like, it just felt like they were milking it.
There was a pace to it that could have been a little bit tighter
but
there.
I'm like, I also understand why they made that decision.
See, I have some disagreements with your critiques there, but I also know what you're saying. There is, in that final moment where we reveal that the brother's dead, the lead up to it, it does go on a little long. You go, okay, the firefight's happening, they're shooting it out. There's also an argument to be made about drawing out...
We're almost out of ammo. We're almost out of ammo. We're almost out of ammo.
We're waiting for air support. Where's the air support? That there, I can see why they did it, though, because it is about the fact of it's taking so goddamn long, and the longer it takes, the more likely it is that they're all going to be dead by the time they get there. And then once West gets there, he's just missed his brother. His brother has just died a second ago. And so the tragedy of the moment is partially earned because we were in the scenes there. We were seeing West shoot and run and jump and go over there, but I don't see it as West having this hero glorification. He's a cool commander.
He's fighting hard.
He's fighting
to get where he wants to go.
He's fighting smart, is what I would think. Rather,
I never doubt that he's gonna make it. Like,
well, there was one shot for me where there was a big explosion behind him, and we saw the guy, Morgan Weiser, running directly down this hill. And the explosion behind him silhouetted his body, and even with all of this armor, he's still just a little guy. And that was an image that I found rather compelling, actually, that, West, throughout all of this, he seems... because he's confronting his younger brother, West seems like he's more invulnerable, like he is this figure that you're discussing here, but that explosion behind him and his body being this tiny little thing against it, and it really highlights that because he had his arms out and his gun in his hand and all of these things, like the helmet and the gun and the shoulder pads and the boots are big, but he himself isn't. I'm not even saying that the actor's a little guy, but just like you are reminded that this is just a mortal man. This isn't what we think of McQueen as oftentimes, when McQueen is this legendary figure that when he walks into the room, everything changes. West isn't like that, but one of the things that I think is the nail in the coffin to all of these critiques, the thing that really hits it down and is the linchpin, I should say, rather, to the critiques you have and the problems that I have, which is Neil himself. He isn't a character that I care about. He's a character Nathan cares about. I personally don't care about him. I care about what his individuality or him as a person will do to Nathan. And so a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here is held back because if there was another version of this episode where I personally cared about Neil West as well as Nathan, it would be so much more palatable to me.
Yeah, it would be a very, very different experience.
What did you actually think about Neil West?
He's just milky nothingness. Again, I find myself hedging what I'm saying by being like, this is kind of the point, but he's just a mouthpiece. He's just spouting propaganda
rhetoric
and marine ideology. That's all that's there. That's all that we get from him a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I felt like the most characterization that I got from him was the flashback from when he was a kid.
That and when he was talking to Nathan when they were exchanging the microphone things or whatever West and Nathan, I should say, broke. I want to just say there's going to be a lot of positives I'm going to say about Neil later on in the podcast, but in this moment, my thing is, from a writing perspective, he is too overtly a means to an end or a device. The thrust of this tale is to show us how much Nathan West has grown, how much he has changed, and how war can still get at him, how Nathan West, this man, this lead character, can still be humbled and still can have things removed and taken away from him. And what does he become when we do that? What is left of Nathan West when you kill off his brother? Or when you threaten to kill off his brother throughout a whole entire episode? His brother serves to remind us of what he used to be. Nathan West wasn't too dissimilar to Neil as he was in the beginning of this episode.
A lot of the faults that Neil has, Nathan also has. And I love Vanson's line about how siblings often focus on what makes them different instead of remembering that they come from the same place.
You have frozen Neil in time. I know how it happens. I did it with my sisters. One of my sisters is married. I still look at her like she's 12. Neil's not a kid anymore. Look, brothers, sisters, they always see the differences in each other. They never realize that they came from the same place. Neil, he's loyal, dedicated, stubborn, a lot tougher than he looks.
And that's a description of me?
The thing too, though, is there's so many elements of what they're doing with Neil that work. Hence, we don't actually despise this episode or hate this episode. We still enjoy it because what the writers are aiming to do has validity to it on a dramatic level. On a cohesive level, it lines up. They've been building to this. This doesn't truly come out of nowhere, but there's just something here where you go,
it just doesn't work.
Another draft or two,
Yeah.
where you hone in on this character specifically. Heck, his commanding officer feels more of a character rather than a device, even though he himself is a generator of drama. That hothead, as you called him, is there so that the tragedy can happen, and you know that from the very beginning. Yet that guy has certain quirks to him that make him more memorable than Neil. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
I didn't even think to respond because I was like, yeah, that's just right.
you felt more about the hothead character, the piggish lieutenant, than you do about Neil. The fact that he lives gives you more emotions than Neil himself dying, right?
Yep.
Why is that?
I don't have an answer for you.
I think it's because there's less of an insistence on me having to have an opinion on him.
Yeah, the show's not assuming that I'm going to care about him and doing all of these things to say that I should.
They put the right amount of emphasis on him. They let you know what he is, what he's all about, and what's he going to do, and they leave it at that.
Let him stand on his own.
They aren't pushing that button so hard that it's almost going to break.
I want to bring up something that's a little bit to the side, but something that I really, really enjoyed in this episode, which is how amazing the 58th are at working together as a team now. Because it's beautiful to see all of these characters working together and working with their strengths that we've seen and we've watched grow over time, like Damfu being the navigator, Vanson being the leader, Cooper
being the guy who does
shoots fucking amazingly.
Yeah, and he runs out and he surveys land and yeah.
Yeah, like they all have their jobs and they all work together, and it makes you appreciate over again why they're the ones that keep on living. Because, like, near the start of the episode, we get the 42nd didn't make it back. And it's just like, well, yeah, because they aren't as good as the 58th.
This being a television series has the benefit of us feeling the squadron become one thing, like one cohesive unit, as you're just talking about. Many times in these military stories or shows or real life, there's almost a description like they move as one, or they're like one body, or
his butt is your butt.
Yeah, and or like they're a hand, and they just move in this manner. And in movies, you only have a certain amount of time to get that across, and you have to use a lot of shorthand, and you just have to, as a viewer, just buy it at face value a lot more. But in a television series, you have the time to actually develop that, to actually put that forward, to see the characters...
To inch it forward,
to see the characters understand one another, to fit into their roles, and to know when to stop. Because what I really was drawn to in terms of their teamwork here, and I'm sure this is what you were going to lead to, was when West was flipping out throughout all of the episode, there were always characters, whether it was Shane or Damfu or Wang or Cooper Hawks, but especially Vanson and McQueen, that would come in, take West to the side and say, hey, I get it, but you're better than this. You need to straighten up.
I know what you are thinking of doing and what your inclination is.
Mm-hmm. They're meeting.
And you can't do it.
And the most important thing about this is West is meeting them at their level and they're meeting him at his level.
Because they know each other.
We had episodes in the beginning of the show where they failed and almost died and hated each other because they all failed at doing that. Think about West in the very first episode of this series.
Their successful communication is a principal reason why they're still alive at this point.
And they are not just communicating, but they are looking at each other through each other's eyes. It is an emotional connection. Hence, when we meet West's brother and we see how he treats his brother when he just starts ripping into him in front of everyone, we are confronted at the fact that Nathan West is now dehumanizing another person, because we're seeing him constantly humanize his 58th. One time, he wasn't like that. We are reminded harshly that Nathan West treated Cooper Hawks like he was a thing because he was a tank. We've now grown beyond that. But here, even though he's doing it because he's his brother and he wants to do a big dick move, it does give us a whiff into the past of the character. And that's what this episode is all about, is transporting us into what Nathan West started out as without actually regressing the character or giving us flashbacks to the character. It is having these foreign outside elements come in and challenge West, and he has to maintain what he is now rather than revert.
Unique perspective, and it makes you wonder what the character is going to keep and what is going to continue to change and what might revert.
They aren't invalidating Nathan West. in the early days of Space Above and Beyond, they were invalidating of Nathan West because he was invalid. A lot of the things he wanted to do were childish and immature and brash and dangerous. And although if we didn't hold him accountable in this episode, he would have been brash and dangerous, but he's coming from a place that we all get. We get it. We know why. Vanson, on a personal level, knows why. She's a sister. She has younger siblings, and she still looks at them as she knew them when they were young. And so she can see through Nathan's eyes here and put herself in his shoes and see that this would be a struggle, but she needs to maintain the chain of command. She needs to make sure that him not flying off the handles is the correct action here. But when push comes to shove, she lets him do it because now it's the time. Okay, Nathan, we're doing it in this organized manner, which is the mirror opposite of what Neil is doing. When Neil and his recon group, they're not acting with any organization to them. They're irresponsible, they're reckless, and it costs them their lives.
They think that they know best.
There's a time and a place to strike. And that is what Neil didn't learn. He was just emotionally immature, just like Nathan West was, and he didn't have the luck of being the protagonist of the series to live and learn.
And I didn't even really think about it as that exactly. I thought about it in a different way of he didn't land himself in a good squadron. Mm-hmm. Because the 58th would not be alive if they did not have McQueen as their CO. I feel very confident in saying that.
Yeah, I would say also in the pilot movie, if they didn't have Cooper as well. Cooper was a major element of what worked.
At this point, there are so many things that would have fallen apart without the leadership that McQueen gives them. And it made me really, it really made me think about the other squadrons and how having a inexperienced leader on leading an inexperienced crew is just a disaster waiting to happen. Like, sending a whole squadron that's as green as it gets.
Lieutenant, this is a sensitive maneuver. One false step, and the entire mission could be compromised.
Sir, if I may speak freely.
Sit down, Private.
Let him speak.
Sir, on behalf of Lieutenant Herrick, he graduated from OCS and TBS with top honors. He's tough, he's smart, he's got impeccable instincts, and we'd follow him anywhere.
The best scene to me that was not with Vance and West was because, let's be real, the scenes between Vanson and West were the most compelling. I found them more compelling than anything with Neil himself. But when she was talking about Neil and how she was talking about how this is impacting the sensibilities of West, because he was acting irresponsibly, he was favorite, he was personally biased, and I like that. Just to detour back onto that for a second, I like that as a storyline because it grounds us back to reality with West as well, where he's still a guy. Like, he's not just a fully a cog in the military machine. When he has things come his way, he does falter, as we would, as you would. You can't say wholeheartedly that you wouldn't be tempted, at least, to react the way that Nathan does to this. But the scene that I want to hone in on is when McQueen comes in and he sees the recon team getting the dress down from the hothead, And he grabs Nathan and he tells him, hey, back down. That's their leader, okay? You got to follow.
That's not your place.
That's not your place, all right? Be a good boy now. Now go away. And he walks over to them and he very matter-of-factly comes over there and gives him the dressing down. To begin with, it isn't this big dick competition where he comes over and he's like, Lieutenant! He doesn't do that. He comes in and he just, almost in a casual manner, but still with that cut in his voice and his delivery to let the other guy know that I'm here. And he gives him a dressing down. And do you want to walk us through that and what your overall opinion is? Because come on, you were clicking your fingers and had that smile on your face of, I can't wait to see McQueen talk to this guy. Because that's every scene. I can't wait to see McQueen talk to this guy because he's going to talk to them in a certain way.
Yes.
The guy turns around and he has his gun.
Yeah. And then McQueen asks for it and he does it wrong.
He first asks him what is the rule when it comes to guns.
After he's been given it and he spiels the way that you're meant to do it, and then McQueen points out that he did it the wrong way. It's just like, the theory, but you didn't show me the action.
You didn't.
You said the words.
An empty gun fires the loudest round.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his character.
Yep.
You are this empty gun, but you're firing off super loud. You are not the soldier you think you are, but you are going to fuck it up real big if you keep doing this.
Yeah. It is a mentoring moment that the hothead is too
oblivious to
absorb. It's too much ego.
He's full of himself. He's on a power trip. He thinks that everything he was doing is the correct choice. He's got all of
these credentials that we get listed off multiple times, and it's just like, no, that's not what makes you qualified.
He knows history. He understands how war works on that textbooks level, but he doesn't actually know it on a practical level.
You haven't been here. You don't know what it's like. You do not know the reality of this war. You know it from hindsight. And
from research.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that he's just like, he gives that a historic example, hothead, to get them to leave the foxhole and go
die
out, and then to make the offensive after they realize that it's a trap, and all of this stuff has happened, and he's just like, he's still believes in this idea that he brings up of, if we succeed, we'll be heroes and it will all be fine.
We'll be in history is specifically what he's driven by. Because being a hero isn't about being famous or infamous or historically relevant. Being a hero is what the 58th are doing. They're just doing the mission. They're doing the job. And if you succeed at the job, you're a hero. You did it. You are there. That's what the heroism of what they are there to do is. Not to single-handedly overthrow the enemy and win the war. I mean, idealistically, that's what you would want. I imagine that's what a lot of Marines or soldiers entering wartime want. That's a part of why Neil has joined. The glory. That's part of why Neil has joined. He also wants that. He wants that, but that's not realistic. And that's what Nathan says to him as well. It's actually more than just this idea of, it's not about that they're going to take away our livelihood or our culture, but they're going to take our lives. It's like, well, once you actually get into the thick of it, that thinking fades away. other things come into focus, and you haven't seen that yet, and hopefully you will, and he never got to, not until the end. And that exchange between McQueen and the lieutenant is what I really like about a script writer, is you can give us a quick little line or quick moment, a physical action that can tell me, the viewer, everything I need to know about a character within a quick moment. Because McQueen saying that about the gun and handing it back to him let me know everything I needed to know going forward.
And also, it's beautiful foreshadowing. That the military is going to arm this dangerous man, knowing his fault.
And he doesn't even get to go over the thing because he gets shot first and knocked back. And McQueen is just a truly wonderful character as usual. And then we get down to the planet, and the recon team just can't help themselves. They need to be the heroes. They need to be the Nathan West of the pilot. Heck, even then, at least Nathan West wasn't a glory hound. He was just wanting to go see his girlfriend, and he was going to fuck everyone over. And one of the takeaways I've had from this episode that has been bubbling from the very beginning with Space Above and Beyond, but this episode directly challenged this notion that I do think it is putting forth as a show overall, which is, and I want to know your thoughts on this after having viewed this episode, but also thinking back to where we've started from. Is there an actual good reason to join the military? Like, is there a no? Is there no? I don't mean that. Like, I mean that in a. Is there a noble reason? Is there such thing as a noble reason? Is a human capable of actually having a moral, upright, noble reasoning to join in an organization or in a scenario where you're going to have to do the horrible things of murder and killing and defending?
I think the show says no. I think the show says no.
How so? How's that been demonstrated to you?
Well, the only one that I can think of that doesn't fully do it is Damfu. I can't remember if we know explicitly why she joined, other than, like, you know, she has all of these skills.
Yeah, she's an engineer, and so she's a part of it, yeah.
Yeah. But Cooper didn't get a choice. It was made for him as a joke.
And also because that's what he was designed to be.
Yep.
He was manufactured to be, created to be a soldier.
West did it for selfish reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Vanson did it for glory.
And revenge.
And, yes.
Like, to fill that void of vengeance within her.
Mm-hmm.
Self-destructive, yeah.
Yep. Wang, we don't really know.
Well, we do a bit. Wang is a case of somebody who grew up in such horrible hardships that he needs, because we know he was poor and that he doesn't really have many friends.
Cockroaches,
that he needs to channel it into something.
Yes.
And
like,
then
they all have their reasons.
McQueen as
for
well.
doing it. And some of them are more overtly selfish than others. But none of them are seen as simply good reasons or simply bad reasons. Like, all of their justifications for joining or the context that led them to enlisting are somewhere in the middle. Like, it's good that they want to help others, but it's bad that they want to do that through murdering. Like, there's lots of different layers to it, but I think ultimately it is showing that you can have the best of intentions, but the military organization in this world is not designed to benefit you as an individual.
Because I thought about this. I've been thinking about this over the course of the last handful of episodes. And McQueen's episode last week where we got his backstory and we've been getting his reasonings for joining and why he's staying. And there's a sadness there. There's a sadness and a tragedy to it all, but we understand why. And that he has found a sense of drive from it all.
He has a purpose in this world.
In this episode, West's younger brother, from just a layman point of view, from just a non army or navy or air force or any of that point of view, just as a common civilian, I think of Neil's reasoning for joining the army as the standard for why you would join the armed forces or the military, and or arguably the quote-unquote right reasons to join. Yet, with how we've been engrossed into the narrative and of Space Above and Beyond and the world of being a Marine, we look at Neil's reasoning for joining as wrong as well, or naive, or misguided. Misguided. But don't you agree, though, or do you have a difference of opinion there? When you think of just in real life, when people join the military, and what is your version of the real, a good reason to do it? Because honestly, what Neil puts forth is one of the things I think of. I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. If somebody I knew joined the army right now and they said those reasons for joining, I'm like, yeah, okay. Be careful, but okay.
I think I feel very differently about it because, at the moment, we're in Australia, we're not at war with anybody else directly. So it's just our way of life is not being threatened in the way that theirs is by the time that Neil enlists.
And if it was, in somebody like him enlisted for the reasons he did, and you saw them go off, would you say that's wrong? Because somebody has to go, right? That's the thought process.
Yeah. I would probably have the same thought that I did when we watched the episode. And I believe that I made some comment like this out loud of well, the propaganda's working. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something to think about, because what I've taken away to give the show some credit, because it is very easy to say that Space Above and Beyond is a war show that is harsh about war itself. It's not a pro-war show, but there is a case to be made about if it's pro-military. I think it's very critical of military and militarization, but within it, it shows the benefits of it, which I actually appreciate because, look, we don't live in the peaceful utopian world that we would love to. This exists, right? Marines exist. They exist for reasons. They may not be reasons you like, but they are here. They do things. They serve a function. And Space Above and Beyond demonstrates that. And I don't think necessarily doing that means that it is pro those things, but it doesn't mean it's anti those things either. I think there have been many moments...
It's more complicated than that.
I think there have been many moments spread throughout that have shown us the negative sides of the militarization of, say, America. But here, in this one, Nathan becoming a more rounded person, even though he's just lost his brother. What I think is actually the key is there is no good reason per se. No, like, objective good reason to join.
There's better reasons and worse reasons.
That's not what I'm getting at. It is, once you're there, you have to shed that.
Yeah.
You have to shed whatever highfalutin, moralistic of that variety of, like, glory or, like, I'm going to change the world. And you have to understand what you're in. Because Nathan is a character that he joined for the wrong reasons. He went after the girl, which in other narratives would be the noble reason to join. The hoorah, he did it because he's after his lady. But we're shown that that's wrong. And he's humbled and he's hurt and traumatized, and he has to experience so many horrible things to truly understand that working together, working as a team, and being a part of a greater unit is why you're in this. Not that you are individually going to save the universe from the Chigs. It is the fact that the Marines are cooperating with these people over here, and this squadron's doing this over here, and you're listening to Commodore Ross, and Commodore Ross is going to tell you when he needs to tell you when he needs to tell you it. So it is also a lesson about how there is a level of, I guess, complacency that you have to fall into. And that's a part of it. That's a chain of command. You have to abide by that. And I think that is what is far more important to take away rather than Space Above and Beyond saying, is there any good reason to join a war? Because, is there? Yeah, sometimes there is, but most of the times you're going to say no to that. And in a sci-fi war allegory show, it can be very simple to just show us all the ways that the answer's no. But I think that would be invalid to do at just the face value. They show us why war is bad. They show us why it's horrible, what it does to our soul, why that hopefully we could shed this.
It decimates all of these aspects of life as well as life itself.
But it exists.
Yeah.
This side of us exists. The side of us that needs to
It does question that as well. And the way that appears in different people and how you can feed into that or reject it.
And to the credit of Space Above and Beyond, this isn't like Starship Troopers where complacency in the military is a good thing, and because Space Above and Beyond is taken from the Future War, I want to say, I'm maybe getting the name wrong, but which is a book that was a critique of Starship Troopers. And we have the Paul Verhoeven movie, which would come out after Space Above and Beyond, which would amplify and ramp up the fascist kind of ideals that they got from Starship Troopers. But to its credit as a series, it isn't saying like you should blindly follow the chain of command and your higher-ranking officers.
There's a time and place for mutiny.
Because there's always an evil, opportunistic, capitalist agenda that underlies every war. And that's amplified by Aerotech's existence. Think of Eyes. That was a whole episode where it's Nathan West learning not to just blindly follow whoever is telling you to do things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuances in Space Above and Beyond, huh?
And I didn't think we would get to this point of complexity when I was watching the pilot all those months ago.
Don't you like me, Herrick?
Yes, sir.
Are you trying to get me killed?
No, sir.
What's the first rule of general rifle safety?
Consider every weapon to be loaded until proven otherwise, sir.
If you can read it, Herrick, why can't you execute it? An unloaded weapon always shoots the loudest.
Although I am going to give Toy Soldiers a yum.
Yum.
On a scale of yum being bad, yum yum being good. I give it a yum, but it is one of those yums that I give only because the script could have used another draft or two. Not because the actual quality of it is bad. The fact that we are having discussions like this because the episode and episodes leading to it are allowing these ideas to pop into our minds is showing that the series was a success. This is a success because this is the goal. This is the goal. The goal isn't just to show us shooting scenes and people running around and explosions and cool spaceship battles. It is to get us as individual viewers to think about the world around us and
the morality
and to challenge us on our ideals and why we think the way we think these things. I know that we shit on Star Trek Discovery all the time, and it's because it fails at stuff like this. Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery was a war show, and yet it never tapped into things like this. It only tapped into them in the way of me, the viewer, going, I wish that they leaned into this more so I could have thoughts like this, so I could have discussions like this, rather than seeing the echo of an idea like that. So although for me Toy Soldiers is a miss, it is a close enough miss where I will look back upon this more fondly than I did previously. Now, for you on our scale of yum being bad and yum yum being good, what do you give this?
I'm still somewhat tossing up because there is a lot of good in this episode. I like what it offers up, but I also feel like it could have been better. So it's just like there's good, there's bad. But I think because it's an episode that I will likely forget and be like, oh yeah, that one. I'm like...
It won't leave a lasting impression on you.
No, but it's just like... It's weird, because what I'm going to go with is it's a yum, but it's not bad.
Yum.
The next episode is called Dear Earth. Any thoughts on what Dear Earth could be about?
I think we'll be back closer to Earth. I don't know if we'll be on Earth, but maybe we take a little bit of a step back. It's hard because like the things that come to mind, I'm like, no, they won't do that. I'm like, they could go back for Neil's funeral, but I'm like, no, they'll just probably do that off screen and in space because
space.
We've seen them do that a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will be broader picture. The Chigs have mounted a defense and are heading towards Earth, and they have to try and head them off.
Okay.
There you go. Don't think that's going to be it at all.
That's Rachel's thoughts. Well, we are getting closer towards the end, so you have to build up stuff like that, I guess. So that is all we have for you. Thank you all so much for listening to us talk about Space Above and Beyond. If you want to follow us or contact us on the internet, we can be found on all of your usual social media sites under YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast. We have an email address where you can contact us directly with your thoughts about things we've discussed or your overall viewing experience at yumyumpod@gmail.com.
And I'm going to ask you a favor. If you have been joining us for some time, or even just for the Space Above and Beyond content, please give us a nice review.
Or rating.
Or just a rating. We would appreciate it a lot.
It doesn't take too much time out of your day. You don't have to write a full article review, but if you do want to, that would be cool too.
It does help us out a lot, and it's really nice to know that the discussions that we're having fun making them
and we hope
are
you have
being
fun listening
enjoyed
to them.
by the listeners.
And share our show around with people, because that always is beneficial. But just selfishly, I want you to really actually push people to watch Space Above and Beyond. Look.
Yeah.
Look, would I like it if you shared the podcast around to people so they can check out our reviews of sci-fi TV shows? Sure. That'd be great. New listeners, new people to contact us. Yeah,
You would get more joy if somebody made somebody
watch Space Above and Beyond.
Or they decide.
Yeah. Look. I benefit and thrill in the vanity being given to me of more listening to more downloads on my podcast? Yeah. But I would actually rather like it more if you pushed Space Above and Beyond on your friends or your family or your children. Just do that. And let me know. Let me know at yumyumpod@gmail.com, or you can head over to our Patreon right now, where we have a lot of bonus content, including our full coverage of Space Above and Beyond, because yes, we have recorded all of our discussions for Space Above and Beyond first for our patrons on Patreon, and then we release it onto the main feed. So you can hear all of our thoughts on Space Above and Beyond right now if you head over to Patreon, and you'll be able to hear our thoughts on other TV shows, Star Trek, or movies with the X-Men movies or Alien movies or whatever else is on there. There's so much bonus content for you to consume. Now, we have to head off because we've talked about this episode, but also there's an angry mob outside with torches because Rachel, last episode we didn't give a toast to our good friend Pags. We literally ended our discussion talking about giving toasts. And we didn't give one to Pags, and his family's outside, angry. And this actually works because the actor was Australian, so Pags is Australian. Outside, angry that we didn't commemorate.
Pags.
We didn't RI Pags. Sorry about that. Forgive me and forgive Rachel, but more importantly, remember Pags.
Here's to Pags.